They did not expect silence to become your ally. They thought you would argue with them, explain yourself to them, bow to the weight of their half-truths and staged confidence. They thought you would panic when lies were repeated enough times. But you did not. You let them speak, let them act, let them dig the hole with their own hands. You gave them space to display their games to everyone watching. And when the time was right, you did not shout, you did not rage, you simply exposed what was always there. You placed truth in front of them like a mirror, and the sound of it was louder than any scream. The jaws dropped not because you made a scene, but because you revealed a scene already unfolding. The audience saw it, raw and unfiltered. You reminded everyone in that room that truth does not require decoration. It stands with or without applause. The beauty of exposing people lies in the fact that you don't have to exaggerate. You don't have to invent stories or add fire to the smoke. You simply reveal what they tried to bury. When someone builds their entire identity on illusion, even a single thread pulled out is enough to unravel everything. You were patient enough to wait for that moment. Patience is a form of power that manipulators cannot match. They rely on reaction, on chaos, on speed. You rely on stillness. You rely on observation. You noticed the cracks they pretended weren't there. You remembered the inconsistencies others brushed aside. And when you laid it all out, the pieces spoke louder than your voice ever could. The room dropped its mask, because in that instant, no one could deny what stood naked in front of them. People expect karma to work slowly, creeping like a shadow, taking years to arrive. What they never expect is someone brave enough to deliver clarity in real time. You didn't wait for the universe to balance the scales. You tilted them with your presence. You did not seek revenge, because revenge wastes energy. You sought exposure, because exposure is permanent. Once truth is seen, it cannot be unseen. And this is why every jaw fell open. They thought you were cornered. They thought you had nothing left. But you revealed that the one thing you always carried was vision. You saw them for what they were long before they realized you were watching. That knowledge was the blade. That vision was the weapon. And you swung it clean. Psychology has a simple rule. People fear being unmasked more than being defeated. Defeat can be spun into a story of comeback, into a tale of strength. Exposure leaves no such narrative. It shows who they are, not what they claim. When you revealed them, you robbed them of their favorite currency, control of perception. They could no longer twist the story. They could no longer position themselves as the hero. Everyone in the room felt the shift. They were forced to reconcile with the evidence. And for manipulators, there is no punishment harsher. You didn't ruin them. They ruined themselves in front of an audience. You only pointed to the stage lights. The real art was how you managed to stay composed while doing it. You didn't foam at the mouth. You didn't stumble with rage. You didn't over-explain. You delivered truth in pieces, so sharp they cut before people realized the blade had touched them. That calmness is what amplified the impact. Rage is expected, defensiveness is predictable, excuses are common, but calm exposure. That is frightening, because calm is confidence, and confidence suggests certainty. You weren't guessing. You weren't speculating. You knew. And that knowing is what broke their shield. No spell is more powerful than composure. No defense is strong enough to stand against steady truth delivered with stillness. Do not underestimate the role of presence. When you exposed them, it wasn't only the words that landed, it was the energy behind them. Presence is what makes people lean in even before you speak. Presence is what makes silence heavy. You carried a presence that made the room aware they were watching something that mattered. They will remember that moment, not because you embarrassed someone, but because you shifted the atmosphere. Rooms never forget the person who changes their air. The drop of every jaw was not about drama. It was about recognition. Recognition that a person could walk in with nothing but discipline and leave with dominance. They had built their empire on appearances. Appearances thrive when no one questions them. You questioned. You put weight on their weak beams, and they snapped under the pressure. And when they snapped, the entire illusion fell. People gasped because they realized they'd been clapping for a stage built of cardboard. You didn't just expose a person, you exposed the system that protected them. That is why the reaction was so violent. People weren't only shocked at them, they were shocked at themselves for believing the act for so long. You forced them to confront their own blindness, and that is a mirror most people avoid. The truth is that exposing someone is less about destroying them and more about freeing yourself. You carried the weight of silence long enough. You endured the whispers and the games. But the moment you spoke, you laid it all down, and that weight shifted to them. They carried the burden of explanation now. They carried the stain of being seen. You walked away lighter. They stayed behind, choking on the mess they created. That is the power of exposure. You don't fight in the mud. You walk into light and let the mud dry on those who threw it. You need to remember what happened in that room every time you doubt your strength. Because what terrified them wasn't just the information you revealed. It was your ability to see, to wait to deliver without losing yourself. That ability is rare. It's the kind of power people can't buy, can't fake, can't imitate. It belongs only to those who have survived lies without letting lies change them. That is why they fear you now. Not because you shouted, but because you didn't need to. Not because you threatened, but because you didn't have to. You left the room knowing something simple. Truth is not fragile. It doesn't need defenders. It only needs time. And when its time comes, no one can stop it. So when the room gasped, when every jaw dropped, you stood taller without even trying. That moment wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about spectacle. It wasn't even about justice. It was about clarity. You brought light into a place that thrived on shadows. And now they know you cannot be underestimated again. You became the reminder that silence is not weakness, that patience is not surrender, that calmness is not emptiness. You became the embodiment of timing. And from this day forward, they will always think twice before standing against you, because they know you don't need force to win. You only need the truth and the courage to release it.